Hey there everyone, thank you so much for being here and thank you so much for watching. In this video I'm going to try to do a more complete or more comprehensive guide to Synology's Active Backup for Business. Now if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I've already created several Active Backup for Business videos in the past, but over time I got more and more comments and questions. I decided to compile them or address them all into this video. We're going to see how to configure the Active Backup for Business application on one side, and then how to do individual files and folders restoration, and then we're going to see how to do complete bare metal restores. Now, Active Backup for Business can do a whole sort of types of backups, virtual machines, file servers, Linux, Windows. We're going to focus on Windows computers. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to touch on a subject I've gotten more and more questions about. Can you use Active Backup for Business as a PC migration tool, meaning backing up a computer from one vendor and then restoring it to a whole different computer? Can it be done? Yes and no, no guarantee. I am going to touch on it a little bit towards the end of the video, so definitely stay tuned. Alright guys, so let's go to the computer and start setting things up. Alright guys, so we are at the computer, and as I said, I want to try to make a sort of a real world kind of guide, not just accepting the default and clicking next and finish, something that we will be able to use on the real world. So I will try to find a balance between giving each topic and subtopic enough time and emphasis to talk about, but on the other side, I will not be able to linger on every little topic, otherwise this video can easily take an hour and a half. Alright, let's start. As you can see, I've already downloaded from the Package Center Active Backup and Active Backup for Business, And just so you know, I am using virtualization in this demonstration. My Synology NAS is actually a virtual DSM device, but it doesn't really matter. Active Backup for Business works and looks exactly the same. And my client Windows 10 device is also a virtual machine running on my VMware ESXi, but again, everything works and looks exactly the same on physical devices. Alright, since we have Active Backup for Business already installed, something that I would like to avoid doing, or at least demonstrate doing, is not using the admin account for everything. We are used to working only with our admin accounts. We don't have to. If you want to give someone, a help desk technician or someone on site, the ability to backup and restore, you don't have to share the Synology admin account. We can create a group and a user account, add it to a group, and give this group enough permissions to do everything in Active Backup for Business. In fact, let's start. Let's go into Control Panel, Users and Groups. Let's create a group and call it ABB as in Active Backup for Business. We will add users to it just a little bit later. Let's give this group permissions on the Active Backup for Business shared folder, which is created automatically when you install Active Backup for Business. Let's click on Next, and I do want to assign Active Backup for Business related permissions in regards to the application. So let's click on Next, and done. Alright, now let's create a user and let's call it Help Desk. Let's give it a password. Let's add it to the ABB group. The group already dictates that it has permissions to the shared folder, so it's already indicated right here. We can just click next, and done. Alright, so we have a user, help desk, that is already a member of a group. We have given enough permissions to do Active Backup for Business related tasks. Now it's time to launch Active Backup for Business. Now the first time you will launch Active Backup for Business, you will probably see an activation screen. You will need to log in with your Synology account, not admin account, the Synology online account, and the application will be activated. Now, before I even add my first computer to Active Backup for Business, the first thing that I want to do is to create a template. A template will dictate what is being backed up and what isn't. In my example, I want to create a template that will back up the system drive, the drive that has the operating system on it, but I do not want to back up other drives. Maybe other drives on computers have Steam games or a lot of junk data that is not critical. I know that the operating system is critical, so I want to dictate that only that will be backed up. So let's go into settings. Let's go to templates and let's create a template. Let's call this template system drive only, so that when we'll see the template, we will know exactly what it refers to. So it will be a Windows template, a PC or Mac, that's the type of device. And this will apply to ABB group, meaning if a user account, we will see it later, installs the Active Directory, the Active Backup for Business agent and logs in with a user account that is inside this group, he will be presented with this template. That's exactly what we want. Click on next. I don't want to back up the entire device and no external drives, only the system volume. Great. Now keep in mind, later on we will create backup tasks that will run on a schedule. It's best to create a schedule when you know the computers are, first of all, powered on, and even though it's not mandatory, maybe in times that they're not really being used so much, for example lunch breaks, or if your computers are on at night, then nightly. But there are some power consumption settings right here. For example, shut down computer after a time-based backup finishes. Again, these are all something that you can decide on your own. For this demonstration, none of these are relevant. So I'll just click next. Next. Now, for compression, I do want to enable compression at the destination so that incremental backups will take less and less space. I highly recommend that you use encryption at the destination, but this is something that for now I don't want to get into. Click on next. Schedule. Now, according to your usages or the way that you use your computers, you can create a schedule. I highly recommend that you create a schedule when your computers are on and as less used as possible, as I mentioned before. For this demonstration, I'm going to do manual backups. Click on next. Retention policy. I do recommend that you use some sort of retention policy. It's up to you to figure out what's more relevant for you, but at least if you're struggling with this area, I recommend keeping at least five versions that you will have to back up and restore to. Click on next and done. Alright, I'm going to go back to the settings tab right here because I do want to use a certificate with my Active Backup for Business agents. Now, I already have a certificate for this device. I created it with a Synology DDNS service. Now, when I created this DDNS, I checked the box to request a certificate from Let's Encrypt. Both the DDNS service and the Let's Encrypt certificate are free, but certification is a whole topic that's a video on its own. I will not be able to dive into that, but once you've created your DDNS service and you got your certificate, you are not done configuring. All you have right now is an FQDN, a fully qualified domain name, that's pointing towards your WAN IP address. From there, you will have to decide if you're going to use port forwarding in some sorts or DNS manipulation. Again, that's a topic on its own. I will not be able to dive into that in this demonstration. But since I do have a certificate already configured, I do not want to use a dedicated Active Backup for Business certificate, because I do want to continue using the certificate I got from Let's Encrypt. Alright, let's click on apply, and actually we are now done configuring the Active Backup for Business application side. Let's switch to our client computer, because we do want to install the Active Backup for Business agent on this computer. Now, where you download these agents, first of all, you can download it on Synology's website on the download center, but an easier option is to go into personal computer right here, click on add device, click on OK, and click on 64-bit. As you can see, we are prompted to download the Active Backup for Business agent. Just download it and install it. I've already downloaded it on my client computer, so let's jump onto that. That's my client computer. As you can see, it's an already configured computer with a wallpaper, and I even have some documents that I've placed on my C drive. I have some data that I want to back up, that's the point. So let's install the Active Backup for Business agent. Double click on that. And let's click on next. Click accept and next and install. Now at this point, this will only install the agent. After the installation, we will have to actually log in to the agent, and this will actually what will be attaching the computer to our Active Backup for Business. Let's click on finish. Alright, so server address. If you are not using a certificate, you can just put the IP address of your Synology NAS. I am using a certificate, so I am going to try to use my fully qualified domain name. And I am going to use the user account that we have created in the beginning of this video. And of course, the password. Now, if everything works just right, I will not be presented with an error that the certificate is untrusted. If you do get this prompt, you can just click proceed. Let's click on connect. Alright, I'm getting a summary of what exactly is going on. I have my server address, the username, the applied template is system drive only. That's exactly the template that we have configured. So let's click on OK. We have made sure that everything looks just as we've expected it. Alright, we are getting a success message that our Active Backup for Business agent is running. And in fact, if we'll go back to our Synology NAS and go back to Active Backup for Business, we see that we have our Lab Win 10 client with a little green dot indicating that they're communicating. That's great. Now, we haven't actually backed up this computer yet, which we will later on, but assuming you have at least given an initial backup to complete, you're at this point able to use the Active Backup for Business portal to restore individual files and folders. Of course, we will do that. But if your computer completely crashes, Windows no longer boots up, and you need to bare metal restore your computer, you first of all, and this is something I wish Synology have made clearer to the users, first of all, while your computer is still working, you need to create the Active Backup for Business recovery media, and you need to dedicate a USB thumb drive to use as a bootable thumb drive to the restoration WinPE environment. If you're not creating this recovery media and your computer dies, it's like you don't have the key to unlock your own door. So this is something very important. While your computer still works, create the recovery media. We will go through this process right now. You only have to create it once and you can use it on all the computers that you're backing up to Active Backup for Business. Alright, let's see how to do that. From here, you click on the Restore drop-down and Entire Device. This will prompt you to download the Synology Active Backup Recovery Media Creator. Let's go ahead and download it. Alright, it's downloaded. Let's extract it. Great. Now, double click on Launch Creator. Alright, so if you have a USB thumb drive you can dedicate to this recovery media, go ahead and plug it back in, use the USB media option and continue with the process. I'm going to create an ISO media just because I know I can upload it to my hypervisor data store and use it on virtual devices. And if I want, I can also use a program like Rufus or something like that to burn this ISO onto USB key if I would want to in the future. I'm going to select the downloads folder to create the ISO file. Let's click on create. Now it tells you that you need to download and install Windows ADK. Windows ADK is something that's used in the enterprise world. You don't even have to dig deep into that. Just click on download. It will download it for you directly from Microsoft. Just click on next, next, accept and install. Now this will take, according to your ISP speed, anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes. I'm going to pause the recording right now and resume it once this installation finishes. Alright guys, so the Windows ADK installation is complete. So click close. Let's go back to our Active Backup for Business Media Creation wizard. Now that we have ADK installed, we can just click on create and it's now creating the ISO file. Or if you use the USB drive, it will now flash the USB drive and make it bootable. Again, this will take anywhere from 2-3 minutes to 5-6 minutes. I am going to again pause the recording and resume it once this is done. Alright, so we got our recovery media created. Here it is. This is the ISO file. Now, what I am going to do right now is I'm going to launch a backup task, manual backup task to this computer so that we will have something to restore to. So the way you launch a manual backup cycle to a computer is just go to the task list tab right here, select the computer, click on backup. Now again, according to the amount of data you have on your C drive, it will take a good 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes for the initial backup to happen. All the incremental backups are only going to back up the differences, the deltas, so they will take much less time. But we are now launching an initial backup. I am going to pause the recording again right here and I'm going to resume it once the initial backup is complete. Alright guys, so the backup task is completed successfully, which is great. Now we have something that we can use to restore if data accidentally gets lost. And this is exactly what we are going to do right now. Let's close this window. In fact, we don't need any of these anymore. So let's go into our C drive, and as you can see I have a folder that's called critical data with a picture and a contract. Now let's simulate a data loss. Of course, shift delete, it's no longer even in the recycle bin. So when it comes to restoring individual files and folders, we actually can do it on our own. We don't need IT to help us. We just click on the arrow right here and launch the Active Backup for Business agent. Double click on it and we have a button, Restore Portal. Let's click on that. Now, as I said before, we don't have to use our Synology admin account. We can still use the user account that we have created. It's called help desk in our example. Alright, great. We are now in the Active Backup for Business restoration portal, and we have our disk listed right here. We have our, we had several backups, we have our timestamps that we can maybe choose from different versions, but we only have one, so we'll select only this timestamp, and we can see our critical data folder right here, and I can restore or download. If I do it from a different computer, I can restore this file. That's great. And now I can restore the picture. That's great. By the way, you can restore complete folders. You don't have to restore individual files. But now that we have restored our files, let's see if they're back where they were. Let's close out this guy and this guy, and look guys, the files have been restored just like that. But that's the easy part. That's in case we need to restore individual files and folders. But what if our computer, for example, there was a power blackout or maybe a failing Windows update, and now our computer no longer boots up? This is exactly where we'll use the Synology recovery media that we have created. So let's go ahead and shut down this computer. I'm going to jump to my hypervisor. And what I am going to do in order to simulate a complete catastrophic damage to the computer, I'm going to completely delete the virtual hard drive that contains the operating system. Let's click Remove Device and Data and click OK. Now, just to verify, if I'll power on this virtual machine right now, it doesn't load. Windows doesn't load. It doesn't have an operating system. So let's turn off this computer and let's create a new virtual hard drive. And now what we want to do, even if it was a physical computer as well as a virtual computer, we want to boot into the USB drive that we have created. In the virtual world, I'm going to attach the ISO file to our virtual DVD drive. I've already uploaded the ISO file to the data store that I have access to. That's my ISO file, so let's click on OK. Make sure it's connected at power on. And so what will happen right now when I power on this computer, it will launch or load into the recovery, Synology recovery WinPE environment. Alright, so this is the recovery wizard. Let's click on next. Again, just like before, we need to put in or the IP address or the fully qualified domain name of our Synology NAS. Now, when it comes to using a fully qualified domain name, it's the same prerequisites as before. It requires some configuration. In fact, let's keep this simple. Let's type in the IP address of our Synology NAS. Let's use our help desk user and the password. Let's click proceed anyway, because we are not using the fully qualified domain name, so the certificate is not trusted. Let's click on proceed anyway. Let's click on the task and the computer name that we want to recover. Let's click on next. Let's click on entire device restore. Click on next. Alright, so I have created another incremental backup point. So just so that we will see, we have a time and date of different versions we can restore to. Let's click the latest one. Let's click on next. Let's click on next. And let's click on OK. And now the restoration process begins. It will restore our C drive and all the hidden kind of partitions it needs in order to load. This again will take at least as much time as it took for the initial backup. Again, I'm going to pause the recording right here and I'm going to resume it once the restoration is over. I will take advantage of the time and address a question I got from a lot of you guys. Can I back up, for example, a Lenovo computer and now restore it onto a different vendor, an HP or a Dell or something like that? Now, I want to make this as clear as possible. Active Backup for Business was never designed to be used as a PC migration tool. It's not. It's designed as a recovery for the same computer that you are using. Now, that being said, I have encountered situations where I actually restored a backup taken on a Lenovo ThinkPad T470, I think, and restored it onto a Lenovo ThinkPad T480. And the only major difference between these computers was the 470 didn't have a discrete GPU and the 480 did have, so we only had to install the drivers for the GPU, reboot, and we were completely restored. But I have heard stories where someone backed up, for example, a Lenovo computer and tried to restore it onto an HP computer, and it didn't work. Even though the restoration process itself completed just fine, the operating system didn't load, because that's actually outside of the restoration process. You are now dealing with drivers expecting certain devices on the end. There's no guarantee. That's my point is. So yes, it can be done, and no, it's outside the restoration process, so the results cannot be guaranteed. Alright guys, I talked enough. I'm going to pause the recording and resume it once the restoration is over. Alright guys, the restoration process is complete, so let's click on finish. Now it's telling you to remove the recovery media. If you have it on a USB drive, just plug it out right now. I'm going to unplug my virtual DVD drive. That's virtually removing the USB drive, and click on restart. What I expect to happen is, now that the partitions and the C drive are restored, I expect Windows to load with the exact same state as it was, with all the data, wallpaper, everything. Alright guys, so Windows booted up with everything in it. Now my boot up took a little longer because of course Windows updates decided they want to be installed at the worst possible time. But as you can see, the entire operating system went from not loading at all, missing a hard drive completely, to being loaded completely with all the data inside. In fact, let's go into our C drive. And we can see we have our critical data folder because it was backed up by Active Backup for Business. Guys, this was my, let's say, real world guide into Active Backup for Business. I hope this was informative for you. I hope I was able to clear some questions you might have had. I hope you join me all on my next video. Thank you guys for watching. Bye bye.